Hi, it's Lee from Silverback Runner, and today's video is going to be around about why, as older runners, do we get slower? Now, the elephant in the room, of course, ultimately, as anybody that gets older, you are going to ultimately get slower. I mean, if this wasn't true, then we'd have 90-year-olds winning the Olympics. That isn't the case. However, the difference between the natural slowing process that will happen as we get older between being 40 and being 70 and 70 to 90, there is something else happening, I feel, that we as runners can control, because you can't control getting older, because if you're not getting older, what's the alternative? You're not here at all. So yeah, you are going to get slower, but I think many older runners aren't doing key things that can slow the slowing process. And in some cases, depending on your running, can actually, in your later years, even make you a little bit quicker or at least more consistent as you get older. So I'm going to share with you these key areas that I think that many older runners are not addressing, and that's why sometimes they're waking up and going, hey, why am I so slow? So let's start off with strength training. Now, the reality for this is as we get older, we do naturally get weaker. There's no getting away from it. And if you don't use it, you lose it. So the sedentary lifestyles that so many of us lead, and even runners lead, because a lot of runners are runners, but their life outside of running is quite sedentary. So they're either going, running, or stopping, sedentary. So, just the fact that you run doesn't always mean that you don't have, in a percentage terms, a more sedentary lifestyle, depending on how much you're moving all day. So strength training is really, really important. Now, the caveat here is you've got to meet yourself where you're at. Now, I hear people go, oh yeah, well I did strength training and it didn't do me any good, I got injured. Yeah, well, if you started running and your first ever run was 20 miles, you probably never want to run again either. You've got to meet yourself where you're at. I'm not saying you go down the gym and pick out the heaviest weight you can find. I think runners I coach quite often will start out with no body weight, just body weight exercises, no weights. And it doesn't have to be a long-term workout. It can be 10, 15 minutes per day for say three days a week, something like that. You can add in band work later on if you want. They want that bit of resistance. And then if you want to move on to weights, or you need to, you can. I do about 2-3 sessions a week with weights, compound weights, free weights. Not so much using machines. I personally don't want that isolation. And what I mean by that is, if I'm doing a squat, I'm working my legs, but I'm working lots of other parts of my body. My whole body has to respond to that movement. If you're on a machine and you're doing legs in isolation, the rest of the body is isolated. That's what I mean. Now, there are some advantages to that. Sometimes if you're injured, the trouble is there's never an absolute. You've got to be a grown-up here and just understand that sometimes what I'm saying, you've got to kind of read between the lines for you, because I'm not talking to you specifically. If I was coaching you, that would be a different scenario. But definitely, broadly speaking, strength training is a great way of slowing down the slowing down process, because it strengthens you and gives you more power. So if you're doing things like squats, planks, glute exercises, they're going to give you more power in your running. And also, as an aside, they're going to give you more strength, and you're going to be more robust and less likely to get injured. Now, yet again, for older runners, the things that slow them down is if they're not able to run consistently, and that of course has an impact on their ability to run, and has a knock-on effect of them not being as fast. So the more you can keep out of the injury zone, the more likely you are to continue to either get faster or at least not get slower. Oh boy, now this is the one that gets people really, really hot and bothered. Nutrition. But I've got to say it to you guys. If I don't say it, then I'm not being completely honest with you. Now, my disclaimer here is for about 8-9 years I've been plant-based. I've not eaten meat for 8-9 years. I'm not selling you or anybody else anything, and I hate the dogma that can be surrounding this thing. You know, the whole vegan movement, where if you turn around and say you did anything that wasn't vegan, they stamp all over you in some frenzy of almost religious fervour. I'm not in for that. I've actually been thrown off a running Facebook group for vegans, just even daring to say that somebody might actually drink dairy or something like that. I'm not into religions and I'm not into dogma. So I'm only sharing with you what I see has worked for me and I see works for other people. And then you can take it like a big grown-up person and either use it or not. But don't get bent out of shape if it's not for you, because then you can go and do something completely different. It's totally up to you. But nutrition or food is fuel. And food is recovery. These are two absolute important areas for a runner. And an older runner, it becomes even more important. I'm not going to go too deep. One, because I'm not a nutritionist. And two, I just can't be bothered with all answering, comments about people getting upset because I've trod on their favourite religious diet. If you're eating what you're eating and it's working, keep doing it, is my opinion. But the Western diet, broadly speaking, does not aid most older runners. If I call it plate wars, what's winning the war on your plate? The more fresh food that you're eating. If you're eating meat, eat meat that at least is of a higher quality. Try and source it locally. Make sure it's not been injected with loads and loads of stuff, because that's going into your body and that isn't going to help you. Also, what's on your plate? If you've got a bit of meat on your plate, is it just, some chips next to it? Or do you have fruit, not on the plate, but, do you have vegetables? Do you eat plenty of fresh fruit? What is happening per week in your diet? And I sometimes track my diet throughout a week, not so much for calories, just to look at what's actually going in. And I'm not religious about it. I mean, I have what I call my crappy carb days. I'll have a pizza or something like that. Yes, and it's not a vegan one. I sometimes just have a little bit of dairy because that's just me. But I know if I have a lot of dairy, that does seem for me to impact my recovery. So I limit my dairy. That is the case for me. I've generally found personally that since and my daughter always says, Dad, are you a vegan? And I always say, I'm a legan. And she said, what the heck's a legan? And I go, I eat what I want. But what I want to eat and what I've worked for me as I've got older, and I said this to a runner I was coaching the other week who was an older runner. I said, look, my job is to get you faster, but I am going to take my coaching hat off now and again and talk to you about nutrition. Not as a nutritionist, but just to share with you as a fellow older runner what's worked for me, because it's worked for me. And I just want to share that. If you don't want to use it, then that's fine. But I've definitely found eating more real food, less processed food, more vegetables, even if it's sometimes in shakes, green smoothies, things like that, and less processed food has aided my recoveries from running, and that has helped me tremendously. I just think the common sense is whatever you're eating, if you're looking at it and it's highly processed, i.e. it's not real food, it's man-made food, adding in more vegetables into your diet in some shape or form, more fruit, more whole grains, and taking out more of the processed stuff, I think will... Does it make you faster on its own? No. But what it means is that you tend to recover quicker from your runs and you feel better from the runs you have. And guess what? If you feel better from your runs, you do more running and you're ultimately probably going to get faster as a runner. So what I would say is do your due diligence. If you're feeling sore and tired, if you're feeling lethargic, then look at what's going in your body. Experiment, see what works for you. One size does not fit for everybody, because I can tell you the reason I know that is there's 10 million diets out there. Some of them work for some people and they don't work for other people. The difficulty is for everybody is that they've got to find the diet that works for them. And I'm not telling you one size fits all. But what I am saying to you is if you look at the research, the one thing that's almost universal is, you know, the fact of more real food versus what is just called the Western diet will leave you in better shape, you know, and I think we all know that. Does that mean we all have to eat like, you know, making ourselves miserable? No, that's the point. You know, you've got to have something that you can work with long term, because if you don't, you won't keep to it. If it's going to make you miserable, you know, you won't keep to it. But I had to share this in this video, because if I didn't, I wasn't being completely honest. So look at your plate wars. Look what's on your plate for breakfast, what's on your plate for lunch, what's on your plate for your evening meal, what's on your plate, so to speak, for your snacks. And is it helping you recover and become not only a better runner, but a better person? As you're getting older, as your energy levels going through the floor at 3 o'clock, like well, mine were 10 years ago. And now I'm nearly 58. I feel more energized now than I did at 48. And that comes down to two things: changing my diet and packing in alcohol. They were the two things that made the biggest impact on my life. They may not make that impact on your life, but they definitely did on mine. Next, lack of sleep. Now, there are some realities as older runners, male and female, that there are some hormonal issues, things like menopause, that can really play havoc with people's sleep. I'm not going to go into that so much in this video because, one, I'm not an expert on it, definitely not a female, so I can't really attest to that. But just wanted to put it out there that that's a reality I understand's there, and I know it's not easily navigated. But broadly speaking, if we're talking about becoming a faster and not slowing down as much, your body needs, you've guessed it again, recovery. And that recovery is best served by a good night's sleep. Now, we are surrounded these days by light, and we are surrounded by distractions day in, day out, like YouTube, that we can watch and be entertained 24 hours a day. This has had a huge impact on us as human beings. I'm not telling you that we should all go back to a cave and a fire. I personally love my Wi-Fi connection. But with great things comes great responsibility. And one of the responsibilities is that you've got to start thinking for yourself as a human being. And getting a lack of good sleep every night will impact you as a runner. It will make you slower. This is a big thing I've changed in the last 10 years. I was always called a night owl. You know, one of these people that stayed up to 12 at night watching TV, drinking at the time. Now I go to bed, try and get to bed in bed by about 9:30 a.m. most nights, and I'm up by 6 a.m. if not earlier, depending if I'm training in the morning. And I feel a lot better for it. I'm getting a good 8 hours sleep a night, or in and around that. And I notice, particularly on my long runs, you know, if I can do, I have Mondays off from work, and do a long run on a Sunday, and I know not everybody can do this, and I normally have a slightly longer sleep on that Sunday night. And I don't know if it's psychological, but I just feel that the recovery is quicker for me. It's one of the best ways for your body. And we all know this. I think, I'm not telling you anything new here, that, your body kind of, you go to sleep and your body gets to work, We dream, it's sorting your mind out, and your body's kind of, in that downtime, and having a little look round and going, well, what's not working? Let's sort this out. And what we've done, we kind of try and I hate this word, hack our sleep patterns, so that we can be up longer, we can be more productive. But I think definitely as people get older, that is the road to rack and ruin, because it's just not great in that respect. And I think you've got to look at your sleep and be more disciplined. Try and an hour before bed have that routine before you're going to bed of going to sleep, knowing that try and get electronic devices off. I'm not always brilliant at that, but that sort of thing. Just any routine, that time you get into bed, you are ready to sleep. You are ready, right, I've had my routine. And just the routine of going to bed at the same time, I think, tells your body it's time to go to bed. So time you lay in bed, say for me at 9:30, my body's going, well, this is when we sleep. If I normally stayed up till 12 at night, it'd probably go, what are we... it's still party time, Lee. What are you doing laying in bed? So, just that routine alone is something. I get up earlier now than I used to, and my body seems to feel better for that. But yet again, you've got to find what works for you. People tend to say they are morning or afternoon or whatever they are people. I think there's some truth in that. But I think what's truer is we are creatures of habit. So whatever habit you've got is how you identify with yourself. And habits can be changed. You can go from, as I was, a night owl, and I'm not a night owl anymore. And it's only my habit has changed. There's nothing changed particularly in me. It's just the habit themselves. The last part of this video is going to be around stress. Now, you can't control all the stress in the world, but stress has an impact on your running, more by indirect circumstances. So by people who have been stressed and anxious, they're more likely to eat badly. They're more likely to, instead of go out for a run, watch Netflix. We take easy soothers when we're feeling stressed and anxious. So stress has a real impact on our running, weirdly enough. Now, I don't have all the answers on stress. I'm just going to share some ideas and thoughts that, particularly I think as we get older, these sort of things happen more and more as an older runner. And this is a good way to perhaps start looking at stress and help get more control over it. Now, some stress is a good thing. I mean, when you lift a weight, you have resistance, and that makes you stronger. So some level of resistance is a good thing. However, if you've got too much resistance, you struggle. And that's what stress in its negative is. When I look at stress and I talk to runners, and I talk to a lot of runners that are stressed, and we're talking about their stress levels because it's impacting their running. And one of the things I say is you've got to be really careful with stress, because there is a tendency, I think, particularly as we get older, to sort of say, well, what I'll do is I'll withdraw from that situation and move back. Because if I move back, I haven't got the stress. The problem is life has a way of stepping forward onto your toes and going, hey, I've just taken up that space. You're still stressed. You step back, and so on and so on. What you have to do is sort of take a step forward, be it only a small one. So when I'm coaching clients, you're looking at small goals in the week. As you get those goals and you achieve those goals, you feel more in control. And control is a big thing in stress. The more control you feel in your life, the less likely you are to feel stressed or anxious. So that is number one. Get small doable goals through the week and move forward. Even in the smallest sense, don't back off. You back off, you might get a momentary relief from stress. I guarantee you life will step on your toes and you'll be no better off. You've got to make those baby steps forward. The other factor is to look at, with stress, is what you can and what you can't control. because the more it's in your control, you can deal with it. The more you're focusing on things that you can't control, you're going to be stressed and anxious about things that you can't control. Hey, anyone been feeling like that the last 2 years? I remember a seminar I went 2 years ago with a mentor of mine within the hairdressing industry, and there was about 30 of us at this seminar, and he asked us a question. He said, how many of you out there have got a problem? Put your hands up. So we all put our hands up, 30 of us with our hands in the air. He said, now, out of the 30 of you here, he said, of all your problems, does it involve a person? 29 people's hands all went down. One person with his hands up. Mine's not a problem with a person. So this guy went over and said, do you mind sharing what that problem is? He said, yeah, my car's broke down. It's a mechanical problem. It doesn't involve a person. He said, well, why hasn't the car been mended then? He said, oh, a mechanic can't get around to do it. It's a person. Now, people are the greatest joy in most people's lives. You know, I can think of all the things that are important to me, and they are people. They are also the biggest pain in the bum in our lives. And we've got to look at people as one of the main reasons that are stress in our life. Not the people we love, but the people that cause us stress. And the ability to take people out of your life that are causing you unnecessary stress but aren't adding anything else in will be one of the main factors that will change the levels of stress of most people. And what that normally means is the ability to be able to say no or not now. If not no, either a hard no or a soft no, not today. Maybe tomorrow, but not today. Because I see most people I coach, the problem isn't the problem. The problem is people. Not that those people are bad. People taking their time, people taking advantage of their good nature, and they do not have the ability to either say a hard no or a soft no, or to be able to transfer some of that to someone else. They try and take it all on themselves, and they become stressed. And that isn't not some easy answer to how you deal with it, but just an awareness of potentially, if you're finding that you're not getting out for runs because you're stressed and anxious, start to look at the areas that you can control, set goals within those areas, make small steps forward. And if you've got people in your life that are causing you stress and anxiety, I'm guaranteeing that there's probably a conversation that's required. And remember, you step back, life will step forward. Those individuals, even if they're well-meaning, will step forward. You sometimes need to just be a little bit brave and step forward yourself. I know this video is different for, what's slowing you down. I could talk about running mechanics, running form. Those things all matter. But the areas I've covered, for me, have been some of the main areas that mean that I get out running regularly. And if you get out running regularly as an older runner, you will, if not get quicker, you will definitely slow down the process of getting slower. If you've enjoyed this video, if you want to give us a like or subscribe to the channel, that would be brilliant, because for it's a small channel like mine, I'm looking to grow it and hopefully more people watch it so that I can help more people who are older runners stay great runners. Anyway, my name's Lee Boniface from Silverback Runner. Speak to you really soon. Bye for now.